We are live.
Hey, I am Old New Dude, and he is.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son, and this is our Song of Ice and Fire Theory Hour that we do on Wednesdays when able.
Yep. Do not feel, all fair use, laws are in effect, and spoilers ahead. If you haven't read the books, you're watching the wrong thing.
Um,
The YouTube
so we had
algorithm.
been we had been going through before we really digressed last time. But the time before that, we had been going through Mark T171's post on thelast.hearth.freeforms.net, thread number 572. Danny, often referred to as F Danny. Well, actually, it's titled F Danny, fake Danny. So it's say
Fine, Danny.
Lemongate fake Danny.
Ah,
It's a reference to people who will keep saying Fagon, which is silly because he's a real person with the name of Aegon, but whatever. Um,
no. He's a real person that they call Aegon. We don't know what his birth name was.
okay, fair enough. That's like the people who say that Jon Snow has a real name of like Aegon or something like. No, he doesn't. Anyway, um,
On the
even
Johnson, before we get going, my question is a technicality. Granted, George kills off John. I'm gonna say Daddy. Potentially to kick into something, but it also alleviates him of his Night's Watch vows. He served till his
sure,
death. His watches ended.
sure.
Now he's free. But couldn't a technicality be if he had took the legitimization from Stannis and potentially Robb in Robb's will, he knelt and said his vows as Jon Snow. When his name was
Interesting.
changed and legitimized to Jon Stark, then the vows he said as Jon Snow are overridden, correct?
I mean, I think the real answer is the king orders you to desert and then pardons you for desertion. I mean, it doesn't sound that difficult.
Well, I mean, doesn't
I
they
order you to
say, didn't
desert. I
Rob
pardon
say
you for
that we,
desertion.
didn't Rob say that we just trade him for like 100 men or something?
Yep.
So, I mean,
And if there's no
it's like
evidence of any hundred men,
yeah, King
there's no evidence of any hundred men or of him having made these arrangements. It's
Right,
it's
right,
it's
right. But
almost as if that chapter isn't the only chapter George ever wrote or short story George ever wrote in his life in which he lays out plans and then they don't go what the plans are. It's
I'll talk about
almost as
George's
if this
plan.
isn't the only chapter in his entire life where he hasn't made the cardinal sin of writing. Almost as
Yeah.
if. Anyway, so we had gotten down
I mean,
to
do you understand that technicality? Do you think that would hold? If George wanted
I
it
mean,
to,
I
I
think you could do
imagine.
whatever you want. I
Right.
mean, that's what part of my point is. I really don't think he needs any technicalities. I really think it's as simple as the king orders you to desert and pardons you for desertion. Game over, right?
But the North remembers.
Let's catch you guys on the rewatch. It's hectic at work today. Did you guys see the 30th ended it? We were just talking
Yeah,
about
I was
that.
talking about the.
When the GM has a video up, yeah, we were just talking about that. So I have not seen that, but Keith has, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I watched
but
three
I
quarters.
should say, dude. I should say, dude. I suppose to be consistent.
Yeah, heaven forbid I use my legal name. The I watched about three quarters of it. It's Quinn, the GM. Came out not even an hour ago. It's the 1,000 signed and numbered copies by George R. R. Martin with the um, dragon leather appearing outside. It's bigger than it's twice the size of my book as far as surface area. It comes in a really nice protective case, a lot of artwork. It comes with a cloth map of the world that folds out to be probably 3-4 feet by 3 feet, maybe, and then rolls back up and goes into this little protective case in there. It looked really awesome. I can't afford it, but looking at his review of it made my mouth water. Not gonna lie. But go check it out. The nobodies that are watching now and those that catch us on rewatch. Because it's just me and you.
I have the first two of my father's original hardbacks. My so the Game of Thrones is. I don't know if you've ever seen the original the cover for the first edition. It's kind of boring. It's just a throne, but it's just
I've seen it.
it doesn't look
Yeah,
like
they
the Iron
definitely got
Throne, really.
better. They got better with age for sure.
Yeah, so I've got the first two. My younger brother has the my Valentcar has the third, fourth, and fifth.
Now, isn't in some countries, was it dance that's broken into two parts?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I
there are
didn't know
some.
that.
Yeah, there might
I
be
saw
some
it
storm broken
I
too.
saw it on a video, and it was like 6 books there. I'm like, 6? And then I had to look, and then I realized what it was.
Yeah, yeah, there are definitely
I got
some that are bound as two sets. Yeah.
All right. We
All right,
rambled.
well, we've gotten down to the Danny's birthday is the base mark here, and well, it's wrong. Um, so let's examine these oddities then. The bullet information found in the books that supports Danny's past doesn't quite add up, precisely because it's not supposed to. So let's examine these oddities. The storm that marked Danny's birth. No squall could frighten Danny, though. Daenerys Stormborn, she was called, for she had come howling into the world on distant Dragonstone as the greatest storm in the memory of Westeros howled outside. A storm so fierce that it ripped gargoyles from the castle walls and smashed her father's fleet to kindling. And we've mentioned that she is referred to as Stormborn in the A Feast for Crows prologue, but it's specifically when he's reminded that it's during the storming of Dragonstone that she escaped, that he says, "Oh yeah, that's why they call her Stormborn," basically. So,
Right.
So she thinks it's because of this incredible storm, but there doesn't seem to be any actual evidence. That's what's going on there.
I'm thinking that she got that from her brother.
Yeah. Why do they call me Stormborn? Because there's this great storm that came out. It's like, because it's probably easier to explain to a child.
Yeah, it might have been a hidden joke that the series knows that she technically is bastard born, and it's his way of digging at it slightly. Because we don't have a POV for him, so it is a dig at him that I am the trueborn Targaryen and you're Stormborn or bastard born.
Right, right. So yeah, because they were probably close to the Dornish marches. At the Tower of Joy might have been close to the Dornish marches, and so it could be debatable whether you're really a sand or a storm at that point.
Well, I mean, Sandborn doesn't really roll off the tongue, so
there's that too. Sure.
You pick a bastard name to put with born, Stoneborn, Snowborn, Hillborn, Waterborn.
Right, and clearly the Westerosi seem to believe that it's actually related to the storming of Dragonstone, right? So, your point is he jokingly calls her Stormborn. He's thinking that while she's born, she came to us from via the Stormlands, perhaps. Like maybe he doesn't even know, right? Maybe she came to them via the Stormlands. He thinks that she's from the Stormlands. He calls her Stormborn because she's a bastard that he thinks came from the Stormlands. Anyway, something like that.
Yeah. I think it's his way of I'm the legitimate type,
and when people ask him, well, why did you say that? Why did you call her Stormborn? He's like, well, because she was born during the storming of Dragonstone, right? And then she asks, why do you call me? And he said, oh, there's this big storm. He's lying and making up different lies for why he calls her Stormborn.
The problem is, though, the more lies you tell, the more you got to remember. But also, I think that plays into his psyche of how dare this bastard-born girl question me or go against what I say and wake the dragon. That's why she wakes the dragon so often, is because she's low-born and he's not. He's royal. She's not. Yeah, well, yeah.
Baseborn.
Well, he doesn't know that.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. He does. He just knows that she's he knows she's a bastard that came to him from the Stormlands, perhaps. Okay. Now, much has been made in the books about the storm that occurred during Dany's birth. As we can see, she even earned an epithet from it. The problem is, though, no one in Westeros has ever actually mentioned the storm as having ever occurred, and the evidence that it didn't is rather damning. First up, the lack of any mention of this storm whatsoever by anybody who lives in Westeros. Oh, there's plenty of mentions about storms hitting Dragonstone in general, but nobody other than Dany ever once mentions the storm that she was born during. Not Stannis, not Davos, not Florent, not Crescent, etc. Well, again, there's discussion of why how there's a reminder that she's known as Stormborn by reminding someone that she was born at the storming of Dragonstone, and she's who then goes, oh yeah, Stormborn. They call her Stormborn, right? So, but there's no mention of that being from a storm. In fact, specifically, he remembers it being Stormborn because it was when Dragonstone was taken, which is in other words during the storming of Dragonstone.
Right.
Nobody at Dragonstone ever mentions any storm that racked the island in 284 that Stannis then had to repair. There's still damage showing. Nobody elsewise ever mentions any storm at all. The only mention of any storm that struck Dragonstone during Dany's birth is Dany herself. It's found absolutely nowhere elsewhere in the series. There's no record about this storm except from Dany, which is odd because Dany claims it was the greatest storm in the memory of Westeros. And nobody in Westeros has any memory of the storm. Which then brings us to the main different.
Dragonstone made out of the same stuff, fused rock that Storm's in is.
I don't think so. Fused stone? I don't think so. Oh, maybe. Interesting. So there's an entry called Dragonstone material, a building material used by the Valyrians in much of their construction, harder than iron, steel, granite, or diamond. It's believed the Valyrians used magic of dragon flame to make stone, turning it to liquid before shaping and fusing it. The castle of Dragonstone, the dragon roads, the inner walls of Tyrosh, the black well of Volantis, and the ruins of the Valyrian fort in Noth are all made of fused black dragonstone. So yeah, you're right.
So it would be as strong as Storm's End. So how would a storm do any damage to it? And granted, Storm's End's design that doesn't let a crevice for wind to get into is the reason they give for it being so strong.
They're supposed to stand forever. They're supposed to stand for thousands of years. So how's this storm going to be ripping out gargoyles and things? I didn't think about it that way because no, I mean given that the Valyrian roads are supposed to have been basically there for at least centuries with no damage whatsoever anywhere to any of them, right?
Not even the sign of wear and tear, weather, no cracks, nothing.
Yep. Which then brings us to the many different logistical problems that come from the storm supposedly having occurred. First off, if a storm racked Dragonstone, why didn't it rack King's Landing too? Both are on Blackwater Bay. Sure, if the greatest storm in the memory of Westeros struck Dragonstone, it also struck King's Landing, no? Yet again, no one mentions King's Landing having been struck by any storm at that period in time. And more importantly, we know that the storm which struck Dragonstone supposedly shattered the Targaryen fleet. Yet Stannis was in the process of building a new fleet for Robert to take Dragonstone. Stannis broke in, when by rights they should be mine. I never asked for Dragonstone. I never wanted it. I took it because Robert's enemies were here, and he commanded me to root them out. I built his fleet and did his work, dutiful as a younger brother should be to an elder, as Renly should be to me. And what was Robert's thanks? He names me Lord of Dragonstone and gives Storm's End and its incomes to Renly. Storm's End belonged to House Baratheon for 300 years. By rights, it should have passed to me when Robert took the Iron Throne. I don't know. By rights, it should have gone to Robert's other children, really. But anyway, he has two sons. Late but here, says Mother Royan. Good to have you here.
Hey, Mother.
So we're discussing the lack of a storm for Dany right now. So this is a lemon topic. See,
just a side note: Stormborn is mentioned 22 times.
Okay.
And then Mother, to get you up to speed, my headcanon for Dany being named Stormborn is her brother. Viserys' dig that he knows that she is bastard born, and he's the true born, and he calls her Stormborn just as his own head way of putting her down without her knowing it.
Well, and she
And
may
her being,
specifically travel to him via the Stormlands. That's definitely possible.
yeah, that's what. Well, I mean, we also went through all the bastard names, and Stormborn sounds better than Sandborn or Stoneborn or anything like that. But
Sammy, stop shaking the table.
yeah, but
Sorry.
then Richard pointed out that he probably thought the direction that they came to Dragonstone that they came from the Stormlands, but it's he thinks she's bastard born, whether she is or not, I don't know. And it's his way of reminding himself, I'm the true born, I'm the heir, I'm the one that's important. Anytime she questions him or doesn't do what he says, it wakes the dragon because she is so beneath him, as far as lineage wise. That's
Well,
my
it's supposed to be I think they're supposed to be the opposite sides of the coin of the Starks. So somebody once told me that these books are about Richard III. See Triple Targets, episode 1. And,
I've never heard that.
and so the concept that there's a two marriages that Ned gets married first with a in front of a heart tree with Ashara, and then in a sept with Cat. So the concept is that Rhaegar marries Elia in a sept and then marries Lyanna at a heart tree, right? And so each one of them having flipped, which their bigamy. Yeah. Brother is so awful. Even in Doctor Who, the actor played a villain in Family of Blood. Oh, interesting.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he doesn't really narrate.
Harry Lloyd, is that the name of the actor that played?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I believe that's right.
Really good job coming off as a bad person. I mean, he did phenomenal, and I love his reading of a Duncan Egg.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Isn't he the narrator? Yep.
Yeah.
So why wasn't Stannis' fleet also destroyed? If the storm was so bad that it wrecked the Targaryen fleet, it should have also wrecked Stannis's. Yet Stannis clearly sails to Dragonstone. He mentions 0 storms troubling him. In fact, he never once even mentions that any storm struck Dragonstone then, or that one shattered the Targaryen fleet, let alone that there ever was a Targaryen fleet. Also, if a storm destroyed the Targaryen boats, then how did Darry sail away? She did not remember Dragonstone either. They had run again, just before the usurper's brother set sail with his new-built fleet. By then, only Dragonstone itself, the ancient seat of their house, had remained of the 7 kingdoms that had once been theirs. It would not remain for long.
Also,
the garrison.
If the fleet is destroyed and there's fleet ships tied up, wouldn't there be like wreckage all over the place, just like in King's Landing?
Yeah, that's the point. Like, how were you even able to sail out of there if it's covered with a wrecked fleet?
I mean, if they go to the side of the island and that's where they get to the ship because they snuck out that way, I mean, yeah, that's fine. But if there's ships that are destroyed in their harbor or up to tied up of the Targaryen fleet, there should be wreckage strewn all over the place because we see a bunch of wreckage at the Blackwater at King's Landing after the Battle of the Blackwater that they now have to take care of. We never hear Stannis say, "Well, you have seen all the broken ships that we had to move out of the way just to make landfall." I mean, you never hear anything about
this point. There's nothing about a shattered fleet here.
Yeah.
The garrison had been prepared to sell to the usurper, but one night Sir Willem Darry and 4 loyal men had broken in the nursery and stolen them both, along with her wet nurse, and set sail under cover of darkness for the safety of the Braavosian coast. You just told us that this. You just told us that this fiercest storm in Westeros' memory shattered the fleet. It probably shattered every single other boat there too, seeing as any seaworthy boat doesn't come on land. So where the hell did Darry find a boat to get across to Braavos if there should be no boats left? And finally, there's the problem of the storm itself. Darry tells us the storm was a summer storm. She was born in Dragonstone 9 moons after their flight, while a raging summer storm threatened to rip the island fastness apart. They said that storm was terrible. The Targaryen fleet was smashed while it lay at anchor, and huge stone blocks were ripped from the parapets and sent hurtling into the wild waters of the narrow sea. Her mother had died birthing her, and for that, her brother Viserys had never forgiven her. Yet we learned from Cotter Pike the ship was Blackbird, the largest of the Watch's galleys. Stormcrow and Talon were faster. Cotter Pike told Maester Aemon back at Eastwatch by the Sea, but they were fighting ships, lean, swift birds of prey, where the rowers sat on open decks. Blackbird was a better choice for the rough waters of the narrow sea beyond Skagos. There have been storms, Pike warned them. Winter storms are worse, but autumns are more frequent. The autumn is when storms frequently rack the narrow sea, and winter when the worst ones fall. So how did the greatest storm in Westeros's history wreck Dragonstone during summer? The worst storms occur in winter, not summer. But it's got to go to the user Pretty Pig Beautiful Bacon for pointing out all this stormborn nonsense. The storm that supposedly happened during Dany's birth makes absolutely no sense from any angle. And it's not the only one. The guy who supposedly saved her following the storm doesn't add up either. Willem Derry. She remembers Sir Willem Dimmy, a great grey bear of a man, half-blind, roaring and bellowing orders from his sickbed. The servants had lived in terror of him, but he had always been kind to Dany. He called her Little Princess, and sometimes My Lady, and his hands were soft as old leather. He never left his bed, though, and the smell of sickness clung to him day and night, a hot, moist, sickly, sweet odor. That was when they lived in Bravos, in the big house with the red door. Dany had her own room there, and a lemon tree outside her window. After Sir Willem had died, the servants had stolen what little money they had left, and soon after, they'd been put out of the big house. They cried when the door closed behind them forever. While Lemongate will indeed be rearing its head in this essay, we need to first address the oddness surrounding Willem Derry. So first off, that sounds like he has diabetes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Now, I like the theory that she's conflating two different people with that memory of Willem Derry and a septic.
Yes. See Preston Jacobs' Page of Lies if you want more on that. Yeah. Now, there are a lot, and that's a great series, by the way. Now, there are a lot of very odd things with Willem Derry, and they start right from the beginning of our introduction to the man. And Jerem just builds and builds on them, which isn't surprising, really, considering that Dany straight up admits that she can barely even remember the man in the above paragraph. Let's start with the fact that Dany remembers that Derry had soft hands. This is extremely weird because Dany just identified that he was Sir Willem Derry, and therefore a knight. Barristan also tells us that he was the master-at-arms at King's Landing. As you wish, said Whitebeard. As a young boy, the Prince of Dragonstone was bookish to a fault. He was reading so early that men said Queen Rhaella must have swallowed some books and a candle whilst he was in her womb. Rhaegar took no interest in the play of other children. The maesters were awed by his wits, but his father's knights would jest sourly that Baelor the Blessed had been born again. Till one day, Prince Rhaegar found something in his scrolls that changed him. I actually don't think that's where he found this, but okay. I think it's either a dream of his or a dream of a certain Woods Witch. No one knows. No one knows. See, Gray Areas, The Mysterious Life of Rhaegar Targaryen. I think it's called. Now, it's one of my favorite videos.
Age by himself?
I don't know. I'm just saying that it seems likely that what changed him was either his own dreams or the ghost. No one knows what our characters are often wrong, especially in their assessments of other characters.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows what it might have been, only that the boy suddenly appeared early one morning in the yard as the knights were donning their steel. He walked up to Sir Willem Derry, the master-at-arms, and said, "I require sword and armor. It seems I must be a warrior." And Yandel tells us that Derry has held the post of master-at-arms since 270 AC. The current rift between the king and the king's hand was also apparent in the matter of appointments, whereas previously his grace had always heeded his hand's counsel, bestowing offices, honors, and inheritances, as Lord Tywin recommended. After 270 AC, he began to disregard the men put forward by his lordship in favor of his own choices. Many Westermen found their places. King Aerys appointed his own favorites. What was it? Found themselves dismissed. Many Westermen found themselves dismissed from the king's service for no better cause than the suspicion that they might be Han's men, which definitely reminds me of the Queen's men of Stannis. In their places, King Aerys appointed his own favorites. But the king's favor had become a chancy thing, his mistrust easy to awaken. Even the Hand's own kin were not exempt from royal displeasure. When Lord Tywin wished to name his brother Sir Tygett Lannister as the Red Keep's master-at-arms, King Aerys gave the post to Sir Willem Derry instead. So we know that Derry had been a master-at-arms and knight for many years by the time Dany should meet him, which is where the fact that he had soft hands is extremely weird, because a man whose life literally stems from wielding weapons would not possess soft hands. She almost slapped his face. Almost. She had gone too far, and too much was at stake. All I do for Tommen. She turned her head and caught Sir Osney's hand with her own, kissing his fingers. They were rough and hard, calloused from the sword. Robert had hands like that, she thought. A knight master-at-arms would have had hard hands from years of swordplay. Now, some might argue that Derry's hands might have softened over the years after Robert's rebellion, where he wouldn't have been practicing his sword so much, especially if he's sick. But Cersei says that Robert's hands were rough and hard like Sir Osney's. And as we all know, Robert became a physical wreck later in his life and probably was little, if ever, training it anymore. Yet Cersei never says.
Good.
Yet Cersei never says that his hands became soft, even though we know the rest of them did. His hands remained calloused from his years of training, plus whatever little work he probably got in every now and then. But anyways, no, Derry's hands wouldn't have softened, especially considering the World of Ice and Fire app says that he died in 289, which is only at most 5 years that Derry might not have been practicing the sword. Robert didn't lose his calluses in 9 years. As Eddard mentions, Robert declines after the Greyjoy Rebellion. Derry wouldn't have lost his calluses according to this world. As a slight aside to the above point, only 2 types of men are ever described in Song of Ice and Fire as having soft hands: maesters and Dorcas Ferris. He doesn't say Dorcas Ferris, but we do.
I mean, wouldn't you put septons in that category too? Or some septons?
Yeah, I would have.
Okay.
I would think that would make sense.
Is,
I mean,
do we know the age of Willem Daery or Willem Daery? Would Aerys pick somebody that he knew, possibly when him and Stefan and Tywin were gallivanting around as squires and young knights and everything? So it could possibly be somebody roughly their age, or he picked somebody older.
Let's see what the wiki thinks his age is.
Oh, beat me to it.
290 AC roughly is when he died. They don't say anything about him.
Mm-mm.
I guess there's no information about how old he was, really. Yeah, I guess there's nothing in the books that gives any clue.
Now she does see him in the house of the Undying, and he's walking with his walking stick. So, I mean, he definitely in poor health. So I guess his age is probably still up there some.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Yeah. So I mean, I like your point because we know that the actual librarians, even in Winterfell, the seat of the old gods, right? Even in Winterfell, they use multiple septons as their librarians. Now, of course, they brought septons to be able to have shifts at the sept and so forth. So you expect that they'd probably bring like 3 septons with them or whatever, since they set up a sept for Cat. But I just find it really interesting. It's not like Maester Luwin is in charge of the library. No, it's the septons who are in charge of the library.
Right.
And that's why I always thought it would have made a lot more sense for Randall Tarley to have sent Sam to be a septon rather than to go to the wall. I sacrificed my firstborn son to serve God. To the gods. Sorry, the gods. Yeah. They would never use a singular, but anyway, I thought that would have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something else too with the Randall Tarley Sam story. We do not serve. We're sending him to the Night's Watch to serve. It's the same, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Whether it's a captain or a maester or at the Night's Watch, you're still.
It's not like it's
serve. I mean, granted, we needed Sam there for certain reasons, but
yeah, and he views it as a warrior role.
Yeah,
and I think it's funny when people are
also
like,
out of sight, out of mind too, for those people that actually knew what he looked like.
And people some of the people watching A Night of Seven Kingdoms have complained that why are they making him so much like Randall Tarley? I'm like, because he specifically is Randall Tarley. Aemon tells us that. Aemon tells us, I understand, Sam. My father was just like your father. He tells us that he's basically Randall Tarley,
right,
in the main canon. So anyway,
they need to reread the book or watch our videos.
Yeah. The eunuch spread his soft hands. On more than that, I hope, sweet lady, I have great esteem for your husband, our new hand, and I know we do both love King Robert. They sent for me last. The realization made her almost too angry for words, and Pycelle runs off to send a message rather than soil his soft, wrinkled hands. The man is useless. Yes, see, yeah. The greatest parentage theory ever. I can't remember who wrote that, but anyway, we've gone over that one. The idea that Pycelle is actually Sir Useless's son.
Yeah, I like that one.
Find Maester Balabar, she commanded. Find Maester Franken. Any of them. Puckins and Shortear ran to obey. Where's my brother? Obsidian, said the other man in the room, a pale, fleshy, pasty-faced young fellow with round shoulders, soft hands, close-set eyes, and food stains on his robe. A fool's question. Maesters had their uses, but Victorian had nothing but contempt for this Kerwin. With his smooth pink cheeks, soft hands, and brown curls, he looked more girlish than most girls. When first he came aboard the Iron Victory, he had a smirky little smile, too. But one night, off the stepstones, he had smiled at the wrong man, and Burton Humble had knocked out 4 of his teeth. Not long after that, Kerwin had come creeping to the captain to complain that 4 of the crew had dragged him below decks and used him as a woman. Here is how you put an end to that, Victorian had told him, slamming a dagger down on the table between them. Kerwin took the blade, too afraid to refuse it, the captain judged, but he had never used it, which of course is supposed to remind us of the wildling woman being taken. You offer any proof of this incest, sir? Maester Theomore asked, holding his soft hands atop his belly. So quite obviously 2 people who never spend any time wielding any swords. A man who worked for his life, whose living came from his ability with his sword, would not have had soft hands. And it's not just Derry's soft hands that don't make sense. The other descriptions of Derry also continue to not add up. Danny remembers Derry as a great gray bear of a man. Well, I'll touch on his physical size in the next part of this essay. The gray part is odd. Now, as we previously covered, Derry got his post at Master at Arms in 270, after Ares chose him instead of heeding Tywin's advice to choose Tygot. Now, while we'll never told Derry's age, anecdotally, I'd say that there's some fairly good evidence that Derry shouldn't really be a gray bear of a man. Yeah, I'd agree with this logic because it specifically says in A World of Ice and Fire that he basically kept trying to get young men into his posts. That right. Tywin would be recommending people with experience, and he would want basically people who had no experience who were really young. So yeah, right. that would mean that Derry should be.
He didn't want hand-me-downs or yeah.
First off, like I said, Derry got his post because he was chosen over Tygot in 270. We know that Tygot himself was only 20 years old in 270 because we know that he was 10 years old in 260 during the Ninepenny King's War. Ototus' 3 eldest sons also acquitted themselves well upon the stepstones, however. Knighted on the eve of the conflict, Sir Tywin Lannister fought in the retinue of the king's young heir, Aerys, Prince of Dragonstone, and was given the honor of dubbing him a knight at war's end. Kevon Lannister, squiring for the Red Lion, also won his spurs and was knighted by Roger Rayne himself. Their brother, Tygot, a squire of 10, was too young for knighthood, but his courage and skill at arms were remarked upon by all, for he slew a grown man in his first battle and 3 more in later fights, one of them a knight of the Golden Company. Those who beheld these proud young lions on the battlefield might rightly wonder how such could ever have sprung from the loins of the quivering fool beneath the rock, Grand Maester Pycelle wrote scornfully in his observations upon the recent bloodletting on the stepstones.
What if they're not his sons?
Yeah, maybe. George certainly loves to play with that idea.
Well, I mean, if was it Rowan Weber? No, he's not. She's not the mother. She's the grandmother, right?
Wait. No, that would be. No, you're right. No, I think you're right.
Rowan Weber is the mother.
No, she's the grandmother of Tywin. No, she's Tywin's grandmother. Yeah. And Joanna's grandmother. She's grandmother both. Yeah, both of them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got messed up there. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. She's the grandmother of both Tywin and Joanna. That's what.
All it would take is seeing how you got. I mean, if every house in Westeros had as many freaking heirs and relatives as the Lannisters do, all you need is a Lannister with golden hair and green eyes, and if you look for a warrior of the same time period as Tytos, there might be a possibility that, or a better warrior, a better man, that might be the actual father, and the mother was actually cheating on him. Or Titus was unable to have children. That's not a theory. That's just stupid headcanon.
Okay. So for me, given that we know that Ares chose Willem specifically despite Tywin in his proposal of his young prodigy brother Tyget, and not necessarily that Willem was the best man for the job, then it's fairly logical that Ares would have chosen one of Tyget's own contemporaries to add salt into the wound. If Tyget's only 20 in 270 AC, then I'm expecting Willem to not be that far off either, or at least within the same ballpark. And this isn't something that Ares hasn't done before, of course. Sir Kevon wished that he could share his certainty. He had known John Cunnington slightly, a proud youth, most headstrong of the gaggle of young lordlings who had gathered around Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, competing for his royal favor. Arrogant, but able and energetic. That, and his skill at arms, was why Mad King Ares had named him Hand. Old Lord Merryweather's inaction had allowed the rebellion to take root and spread, and Ares wanted someone young and vigorous to match Robert's own youth and vigor. Too soon, Lord Tywin Lannister had declared when word of the king's choice had reached Casterly Rock. Cunnington is too young, too bold, too eager for glory. That kind of turned out to be true.
Yeah, he's not bold enough to burn down a city.
Yep. Well, because he specifically wanted the glory.
Yeah.
During Robert's rebellion, Ares specifically turned to John Cunnington in an effort to try and match the rebels' youthful, energetic, and highly skilled Robert with the equally youthful, energetic, and highly skilled John. So why wouldn't he try and match Tyget's youthfulness, energy, and skill with an equally youthful, energetic, and skilled man who happened to be Sir Willem Darry? The parallel is there that Ares will match somebody, not try and oppose him when he wants to one-up a person. Ares would have picked a contemporary of Tyget's, not some older veteran. And furthermore, we know that Willem and Jonathor were brothers. Ares is Kingsguard. I was wondering about the Kingsguard at Ares' death. I know that Jaime Lannister, Oswald Went, Gerald Hightower, Arthur Dane, and Barristan Selmy were in the Kingsguard. Who were the other two? Was one Prince Lewin of Dorne? Yes. The other was Sir Jonathor Darry, brother to Sir Willem. So that's I guess that's a so spake Martin. Okay. Well, we never learn Jonathor's age. We hear about John Darry in the books because he's the one that's like outside of, he's the one that's telling Jaime not from him. We are sworn to protect her, but not from him. Okay. When Rhaella's being raped by, and Jaime thinks that that's when Dany was conceived, but of course Dany's birth is a lie. So anyway,
yeah,
it's deliberately it's deliberately official that her birthday is 9 months after that event, but that doesn't mean that that's actually what happened. Anyway.
Well, I mean, people use that to conflate. I don't know if that's the right word, but it sounded good. John's that Dany's born 9 months after John.
Right. Because of that quote from right before this section that we're reading today, right? This is right. About Dany's birthday and John's birthday, and how they don't make sense.
Yeah, they're saying Dany's Ares' daughter. So if she was conceived right before they left, that means she's born 9 months after the fall of King's Landing. So if she's 9 months, 8 to 9 months, or whatever George says, older or younger than John, that means John's birth is at that. No, that's not how it works. He's using words to confuse you, making you think that John's born around the time of the sack of King's Landing and Dany is born 9 months later, when in fact it is Dany's probably born about 2 months after the fall of King's Landing, and John is born about 8 months before that. And we talked about it the other day. The way to make that happen. You don't pick people that are already old to join the Kingsguard either. So which is his point and where he's going is that Jonathor seems to be a similar age to Willem as his brother, probably separated by a year or two or something, right? Well, we never learned Jonathor's age. There's nothing to indicate that he's particularly young or old. He seems to be right in the middle, which again would fit if his brother Willem was around his 20s in 270. Seeing as our main looks into Jonathor come from Jaime Remember the Man in 283, 13 years later. If Willem was in his 20s and he and Jonathor were reasonably close in age, then Jonathor would be in his 30s by 283 when Jaime's remembering him. So neither old nor young, just like he seems. So now if Willem was basically in his 20s in 270, then
then it's odd that he's a gray bear of a man, and Danny's memory is seen as the app World of Ice and Fire says that Derry dies in 289. Well, the idea is that he dies when she's still young and at the house with the red door, right? So she's a little kid, which means it has to be just several years after the rebellion. Anyway.
Well, again, the question is, when do memories start forming? At what age? Does she remember him as Sir Willem Derry, or was she told that was Willem Derry?
Yeah, there's that too. True, which would have only made Willem some age between 39 and maybe 48 at the most, aka not an old man who'd gone totally to gray or not likely to have. Nobody ever calls Willem Derry an old man anywhere else in the story. Danny is our only source of information for Willem being this old man. Another oddity is in how Derry supposedly died. It sounds like he died from diabetes, but anyway. Danny hungered and thirsted with the rest of them. The milk in her breast dried up, her nipples cracked and bled, and the flesh fell away from her day by day. She was lean and hard as a stick. Yet it was her dragons she feared for. Her father had been slain before she was born, and her splendid brother Rhaegar as well. Have I ever mentioned that they love to conflate her father with her brother Rhaegar in Danny's chapters?
Yep.
Her mother had I think, see Triple Targets episode 4. Her mother had died, bringing her into the world while the storm screamed outside. Gentle Sir Willem Derry, who must have loved her after a fashion, had been taken by a wasting sickness when she was very young. Her brother Viserys, Khal Drogo, who was her sun and stars, even her unborn son, the gods had claimed them all. They will not have my dragons, Danny vowed. They will not. So here we're told that Derry died of a wasting sickness. Now this is odd because, as mentioned before, Danny remembers Derry as a great gray bear of a man, a bear of a man. So Derry was a big man according to Danny, which is odd because he's dying of a wasting sickness. He should be, wasting, like Hoster Tully did when he got sick.
Right.
Hoster Tully had always been a big man, tall and broad in his youth, portly as he grew older. Now he seemed shrunken. The muscle and meat melted off his bones. Even his face sagged. The last time Catelyn had seen him, his hair and beard had been brown, well streaked with gray. Now they'd gone white as snow. How could Derry be dying of a wasting sickness if Danny remembers him as this great big man? That's contradictory. It makes no sense. Derry can't possibly have been dying of a wasting sickness if he is still this great big man. Now, personally, I believe that indicates that Willem was actually poisoned and not dying of a wasting sickness, which is further supported by the sickly sweet smell that Danny remembers, seeing as Tywin's corpse is also said to have smelled like that. And many believe that it's possible that Tywin was poisoned before his death. But either way, his physical size does not match how Danny says he was dying. And one of those physical size is weird itself, seeing as none of the Derrys in our story are ever described as big men in the first place. Now, of course, you don't need to have a family trait of being large, like the Baratheons, Cleganes, or Umbers, to produce a member who himself grows into a great gray bear of a man. But it does help. It is odd that no Derry is ever described as being a large man besides Willem, not even his brother Jonathor. More importantly, no one ever calls Willem a big man either. Cersei makes no mention of it. Yendel makes no mention of it. Ned makes no mention of it, etc. Danny is our one and only source who ever says that Barry was this big man. As you've no doubt noticed if you're made it this far, Danny's the only person who describes a lot of things one way, isn't she? Finally, Danny says that Derry lived in his sickbed. She remembers Sir Willem dimly, a great gray bear of a man, half blind, roaring and bellowing orders from his sickbed. The servants had lived in terror of him, but he'd always been kind to Danny. He called her little princess and sometimes my lady, and his hands were soft as old leather. He never left his bed, though. The smell of sickness clung to him day and night, a hot, moist, sickly sweet odor. That was when they lived in Bravos, in the big house with the red door. Then he had her own room there, with a lemon tree outside her window. After Sir Willem had died, the servants had stolen what little money they had left, and soon after they'd been put out of the big house. Danny had cried when the red door closed behind them forever. Danny then has a vision in the House of the Undying of Derry walking around with a cane. She fled from him, but only as far as the next open door. I know this room, she thought. She remembered those great wooden beams and the carved animal faces that adorned them. There, outside the window, a lemon tree. The sight of it made her heart ache with longing. It is the house with the red door, the house in Bravos. No sooner had she thought it than old Sir Willem came into the room, leaning heavily on his stick. Little princess, there you are, he said in his gruff, kind voice. Come, he said. Come to me, my lady. You're home now. You're safe now. His big, wrinkled hand reached for her, soft as old leather. Danny wanted to take it and hold it and kiss it. She wanted that as much as she'd ever wanted anything. Her foot edged forward, and then she thought, He's dead. He's dead. The sweet old bear. He died a long time ago. She backed away and ran. The vision could, of course, be a false vision of something that never happened. Nonetheless, we've got another contradiction found here. Danny said that Derry never left his bed at the house with the red door, yet she has a vision of presumably her past, of Derry walking with the aid of a stick. All in all, there's a ton of odd things with Derry and Danny's past that don't add up. It makes a lot of sense that they don't particularly add up, seeing as the stories that Willem Derry helped out Rayella and Viserys don't even add up themselves. Flight to Dragonstone. In the Tower of Joy dream, Ned says that Willem Derry fled to Dragonstone with Viserys and Rayella. So Willem Derry has fled to Dragonstone with your queen and Prince Viserys. I thought you might have sailed with him. Now, it might come as a surprise to some, but Ned is actually the only person to ever say this, that Derry fled to Dragonstone with Rayella and Viserys. No one else ever mentions this. Oh, people mention that Viserys and Rayella were sent to Dragonstone, but no one mentions Derry. Jaime remembers that after the Trident, Aerys ordered Viserys and Rayella to go to Dragonstone. My sworn brothers were all away, you see, but Aerys liked to keep me close. I was my father's son, so he did not trust me. He wanted me where Varys could watch me day and night, so I heard it all. Oh, I love that, though. I was my father's son, so he did not trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah, those pronouns make a lot of sense if the he is in fact the father, right? And of course the way he's and of course the way his father is in fact the Mad King and is crazy. What madness is this? See Triple Dragons episode 5.
The same father that doesn't trust his other son, Rhaegar. So I'm sensing a trend there.
He wanted me where Varys could watch me day and night, so I heard it all. He remembered how Rostert's eyes would shine when he unrolled his maps to show where the substance must be placed.
What if Aerys knows that Jaime was his son, and that's why he wanted to put the white cloak on him? One, it doesn't mess up the lineage, but two, have him close so he could be there, but he saw too much of Tywin in Jaime for it to be of any meaning.
Maybe.
Or that's the only reason he wanted them close, and everybody thinks it was because of Tywin, but no, he wanted his son to guard him.
Yeah, it could be.
Something like that. Headcanon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You remembered how Rostert's eyes would shine when he unrolled his maps to show where the substance must be placed. Garrigus and Bellis were the same. Rhaegar met Robert on the Trident, and you know what happened there? When the word reached court, Aerys packed the queen off to Dragonstone with Prince Viserys. Princess Elia would have gone as well, but he forbade it. Somehow, he'd gotten it in his head that Prince Lewin must have betrayed Rhaegar in the Trident, but he thought he could keep Dorne loyal so long as he kept Elia and Aegon by his side. The traitors want my city, I heard him tell Rosert, but I'll give them naught but ashes. Let Robert be king over charred bones and cooked meat. The Targaryens never bury their dead, they burn them. Aerys meant to have the greatest funeral pyre of them all, though if truth be told, I do not believe he truly expected to die. Like Aerion Brightfire before him, Aerys thought the fire would transform him. He would rise again, reborn as a dragon, and turn all his enemies to ash. Her brother is so awful. Oh, we already did that. Sorry.
That one. Yeah. I just kicked it off.
I'd seen motion in the corner of my eye, and that's why I was looking at it.
Okay. Well, when we have Mother, it doesn't have names on the bottom, and for all the millions, they need to know who we are.
Oh, of course. And Yandel also reports this. Birds flew, and couriers raced to bear word of the victory at the Ruby Ford. When the news reached the Red Keep, it was said that Aerys cursed the Dornish, certain that Lewin had betrayed Rhaegar. He sent his pregnant queen, Rhaella, and his younger son and new heir, Viserys, away to Dragonstone, where Princess Elia was forced to remain in King's Landing with Rhaegar's children as a hostage against Dorne. Having burned his previous hand, Lord Chelsted, alive for bad counsel during the war, Aerys now appointed another to the position, the alchemist Rosart, a man of low birth with little to recommend him but his flames and trickery. But as you can see, there's no mention of Derry by either of them. Ned, in a fever dream that the author himself was mentioned as being unreliable, is our only source saying this, which leads me to thinking there's something wrong here, both because of nobody mentioned Derry leaving, and also because if you examine things, it's quite clear that Viserys and Rhaella did not go to Dragonstone together. Jaime had only seen Rhaella once after that, the morning of the day she left for Dragonstone. The queen had been cloaked and hooded as she climbed inside the royal wheelhouse that would take her down Aegon's high hill to the waiting ship, but he heard her maids whispering after she was gone. It said that the queen looked as if some beast had ravaged her, clawing at her thighs and chewing on her breasts. A crown beast, Jamie knew. Here we see that Jamie remembers seeing Rhaella depart for Dragonstone in the morning. No mention of Viserys or Darry ever leaving with her. Yet sometimes Dany would picture the way it had been. So often had her brother told her the stories. The midnight flight to Dragonstone, moonlight shimmering on the ship's black sails, her brother Rhaegar battling the usurper in the bloody waters of the Trident, dying for the woman he loved. The sack of King's Landing by the ones Viserys called the usurper's dogs, the lords Lannister and Stark, Princess Elia of Dorne pleading for mercy as Rhaegar's heir was ripped from her breast and murdered before her eyes. The polished skulls of the last dragon staring down sightlessly from the walls of the throne room, while the Kingslayer opened father's throat with a golden sword. And yet here we have Dany telling us that Viserys told her that he left for Dragonstone at midnight, and there's no mention of having left with Rhaella or Darry either. And while this is an aside, credit should be made to, I believe, the user Voice, for pointing out that Viserys' ship with black sails sounds quite a lot like a smuggler's ship, as Davos describes his own smuggler ship exactly like this. Not any official royal ship, which we know that Rhaella at least took, because the ship was waiting for her in King's Landing Harbor and everything. Rhaella, at the very least,
sails be black with the red dragon on it, though?
Well, a ship with black sails is all it said, but it could have a red dragon. But so the Great Busey, who's the one who technically I heard from Can I Try To. Can I Try To Reddit user was the Reddit user who pointed me to the Great Busey's comments about Val, Aegon, and Dany being triplet Targaryens, right? And he's always argued that this is actually Davos, and that it's Davos smuggling Viserys and Dany, and it's after the Tower of Joy, because of course, obviously, he believes, as we do, that Dany was the third triplet born at the Tower of Joy, or wherever. But anyway, the point is the third R+L triplet being smuggled over to Rhaella, right? And so he thinks that it's literally describing Davos's ship.
Okay, I'm just trying to do the math on.
Think about this. They've already broken the siege. Okay. They've already broken the siege. Ned already knows of Davos. Davos is a smuggler, a very famous smuggler that Ned knows as part of the breaking of the siege. Then he goes to the Tower of Joy. He needs to smuggle someone.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's saying, well, who would you turn to? Well, you turn to the famous smuggler who helped you win the war. That's the Great Busey's theory, anyway. That this is literally describing Davos.
Right. So I'm trying to do the okay. All right. Ned goes to Storm's End. Siege is lifted. He meets Sir Davos now. Goes to Tower of Joy. Stannis goes to King's Landing and is commanded to rebuild the fleet. Davos stays?
Or maybe Maester, maybe it's Maester, is it Willis? Or what's the name of was it Wallace? Wallace Flowers, right? Wallace Flowers, Maester Wallace Flowers. So maybe it's Wallace that does it. But the point is that the people there know who to trust as a smuggler. Right. Whether it's Oswell or the Half Maester or Ned. Somebody, because they probably split them up and went separate ways. Like they probably don't even want to know which one goes where. But the point is, whoever it was,
the one Targaryen that their two daughters or whatever, two children are taken away on Fair Isle, and they do not tell her where they sent the children. That way, she couldn't tell if she was tortured where they're at to Maegor. I've been watching videos on Targaryen. Sorry. But I don't know crap about Targaryen, so I figured I better watch them. The same thing could be here. I mean, we got three. Everybody there knows where one of them is going to be if Jon Snow was born there. But if all three are split and nobody other than the one that takes the child knows where they're going, the other two don't know. I mean, Yeah,
Ned may
I
have
mean,
suggested it to Ashara, for example. Maybe it's Ashara, and Ned suggests it to Ashara because maybe Ned takes Danny with him to Ashara to return the sword, right?
mhm. I think Char's there.
Maybe, well, either way, we know he takes the sword to Starfall, right?
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
agrees.
Starfall
The
loves
first
him. I
thing
mean,
Ned
yeah,
does
yeah.
with probably at least one baby from the Tower of Joy is he
Mhm,
goes to Starfall, right? We
mhm.
we know that. Everybody knows that, right? That's like well known that that's what he does.
Yeah, Oswell maybe, uh, because I think the Hightower, man, well, Arthur,
Well, I
and
like the idea that
those three go so well. I mean,
Well, I like the idea that that Ashara is associated with as being Danny's mother,
mhm,
and that's basically Gilly, right? In the baby swap concept. So
mhm,
that's why I like the idea that it's actually Ashara, but then Ned would have been the one that would recommend Davos in that case.
right. Okay.
He may have even have been impressed that he was willing to sacrifice his fingers to become a knight and so forth. So I could see Ned really respecting Davos for that.
Well, it wasn't so much sacrifice; he didn't have a choice in it. Stannis is like the good can't wash out the bad. So I mean, there's got to be some punishment
Yeah,
for all your smuggling. So
yeah.
it's your fingertips.
Well,
I
no, he
mean,
says that he would agree to the trade as long as Stannis would cut his fingers for it
right,
personally,
right, right. I'm
which
assuming
is
Davos
definitely something Ned would
definitely.
respect. Like
Yeah,
Ned
yeah,
saying
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh yeah, that's
yeah,
like that's boom, that's like Ned, that's my guy right there, you know.
yeah. Okay, I can see it.
Ship with Black Sail sounds an awful lot like smuggler ship as Davos describes his own smuggler ship exactly like this, not any official royal ship, which we know that Rhaella at least took because the ship was waiting for in King's Landing Harbor and everything. Rhaella at the very least left King's Landing officially, but Viserys seems to have been smuggled out. With that aside, it's quite clear from the different descriptions, as well as lack of similar details, that not only did Viserys and Rhaella not go to Dragonstone together, but that Darry wasn't with either of them, as nobody ever mentioned except Ned, which actually could make sense because if you read Ned's line like so, Sir Willem Darry is fled to Dragonstone with your queen and Prince Viserys. I thought you might have sailed with him. Okay. Ned is saying that he thought the Kingsguard would have sailed with Darry and not Viserys and Rhaella, as in Darry later joined them on his own. Okay. I see what he's saying there. Yeah, that does make sense. Sir Willem Darry is fled to Dragonstone with your queen and Prince Viserys. I thought you might have sailed with him. Sir Willem Darry is fled to Dragonstone with your queen and
He
Prince
didn't take him.
Viserys.
He came after.
That's what he's saying. What if you interpret this
Yeah,
as
I
Ned
come back.
saying, "I
Yeah,
thought you might have sailed with him, not with them. I thought you might
right,
have sailed with him, not with them." The fact that he uses the pronoun him and not them means he sailed alone,
right, right.
and that's what Ned is saying. He doesn't say, "I thought you might have sailed with them. I thought you might have sailed with him."
Okay.
Anyway, Ned is saying that he thought the Kingsguard would have sailed with Darry and not Viserys and Rhaella, as in Darry later joined them on his own, right? Which at least would make more sense, as there seems to be no doubt that Viserys, Rhaella, and Darry were all at least on Dragonstone together at some point. When you combine everything together, it seems far more likely that they were not always together. And it should be noted that while I'm arguing that Dany's Willem Darry is not Willem Darry, I am not suggesting that the real Willem Darry never did play a role in at least Viserys' life. He's certainly well attested to there, be it from Stannis recalling that Darry smuggled him out of Dragonstone before he got there, or Darry signing for Viserys' marriage pact, etc. That Willem Darry seems well and accounted for. It's Dany's Willem Darry, which I've gone over already, not matching up to what the real Willem Darry should have been like. That doesn't make sense. In my opinion, Dany was simply told that the man she remembers, her Willem Darry, was Willem Darry, the man who's at least clearly involved in Viserys' life. Who her Willem Darry was is a topic in and of itself, but as I believe I've demonstrated, there's enough oddities around everything Willem Darry and the actual Willem Darry that something is odd, which of course inevitably has to lead us to discussing Lemongate. And let's stop here before we get into Lemongate because we're right at the hour.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. If Darry takes Viserys, okay, he's on the smuggler ship with Viserys. All right, they go to Darry. They sail to Duskendale because they have to worry about men marching down the damn road or whatever, or running into an army. They sail to Duskendale and cross and go to Derry. All right. The series is because we know Derry are hard on Targaryen loyalists. All right. Rhaella, is that the queen's name?
Yes.
I'm getting better with Targaryens. Rhaella is at Dragonstone. Okay. Never mind. I did the math in my head. I talked before.
Okay.
It didn't work.
Okay.
My bad.
Anyway. All right. Well,
No,
we'll resume with. We'll literally resume with Lemongate on our next time we're talking about this.
Yep. And Friday is the last of the Daenerys chapter.
Yeah, it's the last chapter before the epilogue.
Yeah. All right. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, we're almost through the five original published books.
Yeah. If it wasn't for the missed live streams here and there that are 99.
Oh, we'd long since be done. Yeah.
Yeah, halfway through again. But that has just been even more videos for me to shift to private to not get a copyright strike.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
All right. Thanks for joining. Those that did, and thanks for those that watch on the rewatch. We appreciate it, and y'all have fun. Take care, and bye. Bye, Richard.
Talking about Friday.